Thank you. Just one thing from the minutes, Councillor Staden, you were asking about the sprint and rail package on progress. Yeah. Can I pass over to Sandy, please, to actually report back on that?
Can I just clarify on it, Chair? It was more about the order for the rolling stock, the hardware as such, about the new type of bus.
Okay, so thank you, Chair, and I'll give you a quick summary of some of the issues that were flagged at the last meeting. But in terms of the rail enhancements, in terms of Walsall to Wolverhampton, there is further work being done around the delivery of that station. There has been an unauthorised structure adjacent to the project's work site, Willenhall Station, which has caused some health and safety concerns and created an exclusion zone, which has led to some delays in terms of that overall programme of work, but that is being currently worked through with the Health and Safety Executive and Network Rail, including Walsall's council building control team as well. There are some risks around the demolition of the remaining structure, which they are currently working through. That's around rail package 1. I'm more than happy to send over an email with the information as well. In terms of the sprint phase 2, so that the works have commenced in September on the Birmingham A34 and A45 sections, including Birmingham and Solihull. They will continue throughout 2025. There is further discussion and dialogue going on around the sections within Walsall and Sandwell and some of the Birmingham city centre packages, which were deferred as part of the wider spending pressures in TfWM capital programme. These will continue to be looked at as part of the next CRSTS period. The other work which you referenced, Councillor, is in relation to the vehicles, and we are continuing to work very closely with National Express on the procurement of the fleet of articulated buses, which will obviously provide the additional benefit. Now, some of that is caught up with the work that we are now doing around exploring and auditing around franchising. So those conversations are ongoing, but I do not have a specific time yet for when the order of those vehicles will be placed. I will pick it up with bus colleagues, and if there is further detail that I can provide on that, then I will get that over to you separately.
Going on.
Yeah, happy with that. Happy with that, Chair. Particularly on the second item, if you could just drop me when you have some detail, drop me a briefing note. Just one other thing, if I may follow up on it, Chair.
Yeah.
The Walsall to Wolverhampton, it's terminology I've never come across where a pop-up building has appeared. As the press reported it over the bank holiday weekend, a pop-up building appeared. It's hard to believe for the public and for myself, actually, coming from that area, that a building appeared over a weekend. But I don't know whether you can elucidate anything on that.
It's news to me, but I will check with the delivery director around the Walsall to Wolverhampton and what that actually relates to.
Thank you very much, Sandy. You're happy with
I'm
that?
happy with that.
Okay, there is one point I do want to make. We are still waiting the final change request forms from Solihull and Coventry. If we can get them, that was expedited. We've had report backs, but we still need the forms submitted if that's okay. Yep. Okay. Right, we go to item 4 then, and that's the investment programme update and dashboard. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The funding commitment as at the end of November remained unchanged, 848.3 million versus the funding available from confirmed income streams of 871 as approved by the NCA board, and the 871 is fully utilised by the earmark contribution approved by the CA board. Costs incurred or drawings at the end of October 2024 are £685.1 million. That, probably more opinion might have read the previous month, is actually down from 690.1, which is a rather unusual fact. That's reduction is due to basic swapping out of funding from the investment programme to the package 2 rail, which allows funds that would be time expiring rights to be brought into the project. It does mean expenditure is still committed and still will be required, but will be introduced at a later date. The advantage we have of investment program project. Since the last board meeting, the WMCA officers have not exercised any delegated powers to approve business cases or change requests. The interim gateway review requested by MHCLG remains paused still at their request, with no news on that despite chasing. In that respect, there's no change, given that the formal 10-year gateway review is due to complete next year in November with a report in March 2026. I suspect that will not be required now. The WMCA officers have been collaborating with MHCLG to complete a local evaluation framework. We've got that in final form, and that is being reviewed internally before submission. We think we have agreed it with MHCLG. I can move on to the dashboard when you're ready, Chair. So on the dashboard, on the dashboard, you see 84 projects recorded having approved funding. We've got completion stage on 30 projects. An evaluation of those projects commenced. Dashboard records the funding allocated and that which is being used, as well as the approved date for completion. This also has the anticipated date now provided by the sponsor. We have red status on 54, sorry, of the 50, out of the 54 live projects, the 21 projects with red status. Those are all due to change requests being required to be signed off and are, in all cases, moving an expiry date.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Does anybody have any questions on that report at all? I think the chair of audit was concerned about the fact that there were still items on red status because of forms, weren't you?
Yeah. Excuse me. It just strikes me that obviously this is a pretty important part of the government's processes around these investments, and I know that this has featured at these meetings for quite an extended period of time. It was obviously encouraging to have the updates from Solihull and Coventry at the last meeting, but it's obviously still a concern that the formal change requests haven't yet come through. But that will happen quite soon.
Thank you. Well, if there's no questions, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Wolverhampton City Centre movement, and the lead on this is Marianne Page from Wolverhampton City Council. Can I pass over to you, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think Sandeep's introducing the item, and I'm happy to follow in if there's anything additional that's needed.
Okay, Sandeep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Marianne. So the paper which sets out the Wolverhampton City Centre movement, bus, cycle and walk package is part of the City Region Sustainable Transport Programme project. It's here today seeking approval of the full business case from the CRSTS funding of 13.53 million. Obviously, the recommendation is to approve with delegated authority to the CA's Section 73 officer to agree suitable terms and conditions to apply the grant award as set out in Section 7. In terms of the project summary, it is a combination of city centre public realm improvements that run through the centre of Wolverhampton within the confines of the A4150 Ring Road. This includes Queen Square, Darlington Street and Lichfield Street, and the total length of the scheme is 750 metres. The proposed infrastructure measures along the corridor include enhanced bus stop facilities, including new shelters, relocated bus stops for better connectivity and raised curbs, LTN 120, the guidance document for cycling, so compliant cycling infrastructure linked to the National Cycle Network, Route 81, as well as a range of local cycle pedestrian routes that focus on the city centre. Pedestrian infrastructure will include widened footways, improved signage, seating and lighting to enhance safety and the perceptions of safety to create improved access and connectivity. and enhancing Queen Square as a high quality events area for the city with hostile vehicle mitigation installed to provide crowd safety. Now, in terms of the report, it sets out the options that have been considered as part of the overall investment case alongside the costs. It does have a very healthy benefit to cost ratio to set out that it represents good value for money in terms of investing through the CRSTS programme. As with all projects within the CRSTS programme, it has been through Combined Authority Programme appraisal and assurance process to review the key elements within the overall full business case, and that has recommended approval based on their appraisal. So I will leave that as an introduction. Marion and I are happy to take any questions if there are any from the board.
Do you have anything to add, Marianne?
No, just thank you. Obviously, it's a high priority investment programme for Wolverhampton. We've already delivered early phases very successfully, and they've helped to stimulate wider investment in the city centre. So keen to progress with delivery on this one.
Councillor Burton first.
Yeah, I mean, it is a high quality scheme, and if you've seen the work that was done with similar interventions on Victoria Street, it draws from a very high quality palette of materials in Wolverhampton, has been deployed very, very effectively. And actually what's interesting for this board as well is that businesses have independently come out and cited the quality of the works as reasons for investment on the units facing these streets as well. So there's been a really beneficial impact from it that they've put in their own words and issued independently of the council. I notice it matches a sort of similar proposal that's come from Birmingham later in this board, and obviously Marianne's can answer any technical questions, and obviously any sort of political questions that's inappropriate for Marianne to comment on. We won't force her to. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think, reading the paper, this is a perfectly good scheme, and I think it's to be acknowledged. The reason why I say that is twofold. One is because Coventry has done quite a lot of work like this over the last few years, and it has massively improved the footfall. It's seen new businesses relocate to the city. It's brought people into the city centre, and it's got the tills ringing. Not everything's perfect, but the facts are, when you put this sort of investment, in towns and cities, businesses tend to follow because they recognise that it will bring the footfall that's required. And I was looking at our news roundup earlier, Chris, and you're quoted from the Daily Express today, so you're obviously going up in the world. I just wanted to ask though, just on the funding, the 2.11, obviously there's some remark, it was, and I understand why these costs of these things go up. That's just an inevitability in the world today. But all the funding is secure, and there's no slippage in terms of the security of the funds that's identified in the 2.11 table. Just so I'm clear on that.
Yes, this is the last funding to be secured. The Towns Fund and Active Travel funding is all in place.
If I may as well, Councillor, just to set out as well as part of the programme appraisal and assurance, is the level of contingency being held against those budget lines as well to give us a bit of that cost assurance around what can be delivered within those cost envelopes. So again, as part of that appraisal, that has been considered to be adequate for the type of project that this is trying to deliver.
And I think we're assured that you'll value engineer anyway if there are any budget pressures. Is that correct, Marianne?
That's correct, yes.
Do we have any more questions, please?
If I'm new to the board, I'm coming back to the board. I was on the board in 2016, so it's Councillor Majid Mahmood, Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport at Birmingham City Council. I've replaced Councillor, I think it's Councillor Sharon Thompson. I think she was substituted by Councillor Karen McCarthy at the last meeting. But I'm here until the end of the municipal year, so at least the next few meetings. I just want to say that it's a very well written and comprehensive report that summarises key benefits of the funding. I know the area quite well myself because I was a law student at Wolverhampton University, did my law degree and my solicitor's finals there. It is no disrespect to Councillor Verdon, but it does need a makeover in the city centre, and I'm sure you will agree with me. And the report does summarise the benefits. And clearly, if you look at 2.10 of the report, it shows the actual difference the project will make to that part of Wolverhampton. And from the report itself, illustrates that Wolverhampton Council has been working on the range improvement program Connected Places strategy for the last 3 years to improve the infrastructure and introduce new facilities for buses, cycling, walking, which are a critical aspect which underpins their wider strategy. I think also the officer mentioned that it also represents phase 2 of the movement and connectivity element. So I fully support this project. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, the benefit cost ratio is quite high, isn't it? And I would reiterate Councillor Ball's comments in relation to the improvement to football. We're experiencing the same in West Bromwich. I think anything where we're improving the general infrastructure of town centres, I think actually does that. I'd like to say, Councillor Verdon, obviously you've been through the pain of some of the works that you've had over the last couple of years, and there is pain involved in this, isn't there? You can't take that away. But the end improvements, I think, you see the benefits there. Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's important not to minimise that aspect, but I think as well in Wolverhampton there's been a lot of best practice learnt from how we previously integrated these schemes and actually how we can go forward. And I think going on from exactly what was said about Coventry, these make noticeable and improved sort of changes. And if you look at where it's going to be impactful in Wolverhampton, this is really a big stretch of the main drag of the city centre that it's going to feel a lot more impactful than other similar schemes, simply because it is one continuous road that's been improved in this way, rather than side streets, bits and bobs. It's one big stretch, so it'll be a really noticeable impact. So the BCR is high to begin with, but actually the sort of social perception of that BCR will be higher on this scheme as well.
Let's get Councillor Verdon. Having worked in Wolverhampton in my first job in my career, it's nice to see some Beach Square, isn't it?
Yes.
Being rebooted as well to an extent. Okay. So can I take it that the recommendations 1 and 2 on page 30?
Oh, God. That's so nice of you.
Are they approved?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. We move on to item 6 then, which is the city centre active travel connections to interchanges. And we're now asking Sandeep again. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And one of the things that we are getting into a bit of a rhythm on is with any reports relating to the CRSTS programme. As my role as SRO, I will be introducing those papers, and we will have our colleagues from or scheme promoter. So we've got Craig Richards from Birmingham City Council, who will then take any other detailed questions as required. So agenda item 6 relates to city centre active travel connections to interchanges, phase 1. The paper is looking for approval for the full business case for this project, which equates to £12.926 million of CRSTS funding, same delegated authority to the CA Section 73 officer to agree suitable grant conditions with Birmingham City Council as set out in Section 7. The Cacti project focuses on last mile journeys by active modes of travel within the city core. It aims to improve quality of connection between public transport interchanges, including New Street Station, Snow Hill Station, Colmore Road bus interchange. The project seeks to provide greater permeability and quality of connections on key city centre links for active travel users by reallocating road space away from vehicular traffic to active travel modes, including walking, cycling and wheeling. This includes pedestrianising the city core loop of Temple Street and Bennett's Hill between 11 AM and 11 PM 7 days a week to give greater priority to pedestrians and cyclists, combined with dedicated infrastructure to enhance the active travel offer in the city for last mile journeys and encourage more sustainable and healthy travel choices. The scheme objectives are to improve the quality of the connections between neighbourhoods, interchanges and key destinations, to increase active travel into and within the city centre by 5%, 1 year after scheme opening. To reduce the number of collisions involving pedestrians and cyclists by 20% by 2030, and to capitalise on the ongoing investment in public realm and improve connectivity to support businesses and growth, including land value uplifts in the immediate vicinity of the scheme. In terms of benefits, again, we have a scheme here which generates a very positive benefit to cost ratio, which demonstrates good value for money in terms of the investment being sought through the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement Programme. And again, through the work that has been undertaken by the WMCA's Programme Assurance and Appraisal team, they have been through the full business case and recommended approval based on the assessments that they have undertaken. I will pause there and allow for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Sandy. Craig, would you want to come in with anything?
Thank you, Sandy. That's an extremely detailed presentation. The only additional thing I'd like to add is the sister project to this one, or the first primary project, which is City Centre Public Realm, has just been completed on budget in Victoria Square, Colmore Row and Waterloo Street. This brings a very similar set of packages in terms of benefits. We've already worked very closely with Colmore Bid and Central Bid on both of these projects, and we're getting those businesses now really reach out to us. And I think there was a term used in the room around money in the till, and we're really starting to see the benefits of the visitors to Birmingham, the daily commuters, having a safe and accessible environment. The second part I'd just like to present is that we're also in full business case tomorrow with Birmingham Cabinet for an extended part of this project, also known as City Centre Active Travel Connections. That's for an additional 7.8 million of Clean Air Zone net surpluses, which make the overall delivery of this project a 20.7 million pound scheme. That's as a March 27 construction date in terms of the Cacti funding, and then a further March 29 completion date of the overall scheme. Councillor Majid Mahmood is in the room, is also a sponsor of this project and has also approved that full business case being presented to Cabinet tomorrow. Thank you.
Councillor Mahmood.
Just for the avoidance of doubt, the commissioners have approved the report, just in case anyone's got any jitters around the funding. The funding we're going to put in is from the Clean Air Zone funding that we've got, where people pay penalties for bringing in non-compliant vehicles in the city centre. So the overall scheme will replace the existing surface works around New Street. New Street is probably one of the most pedestrianised areas in the whole country, and it's been 30 years. It's been needing work for many years, and this will provide us with the work here will be key. There's also going to be some hostile vehicle mitigation measures proposed within the area to make it more accessible. And as the officer said, it's about improving the active travel aspect of the city, moving people away from vehicles onto walking and cycling. There'll also be new street furniture, benches that spruce up the city centre. And given, especially with the German market that we have over Christmas, we have literally millions of people coming to visit the city centre, and we want to give them that overall experience that will entice more business to come into the city as well. And we act as a hub for the entire West Midlands, if not the country. Thank you.
That's quite exciting, Councillor Mahmood. Councillor Burden.
Yeah, it's sort of what Councillor Mahmood's just alluded to there. I'm sure that the sort of style of brick paving was very fashionable in the 80s and 90s, but it hasn't aged to the way it should have. And actually, if you see the sort of work that they've done in the first phase of this, as Craig was alluded to, actually around the council, it really is fantastic. It's sort of the best quality of that sort of architecture I've seen in a really long time as well. So having that down New Street will be fantastic. And actually, I think it will be a bit more timeless if we are being polite about it. It'll be a bit more, that won't go in and out of fashion. It really is a permanent intervention that's got to look really good with the quality.
I think you've touched on something there which has been really key through the planning and development stage of this project, is to create consistency, not in terms of just standards and the accessibility standards we're working to, but also material palette in terms of its wear and tear, and the infrastructure requirements within that city. One of the things this project does do is supports the improvement and recovery plan of Birmingham City Council. The net maintenance of this scheme is a lot lower and actually provides a saving, which is testament to the material palettes that we've chosen, in collaboration with WMCA colleagues, as well as our planning teams, to create that consistency across the city. So yeah, some real positives in this one behind the scenes as well as what's in front of the paper.
Do you have any further questions or points? Can I just say that both the previous scheme and this, to my mind, are really impactful for the region, really. I mean, but the interconnectivity of this particular scheme for Birmingham is really important, I think. I think the signing in terms of people getting off of a station and wanting to know how to get to something else is very important. You mentioned that you've been working with the bids. How's the consultation gone with them in terms of disruption and what have you?
We've done some really extensive consultation over the development stages. We started in 2020 with a full business and resident business engagement exercise. We developed an extended one last year in 2023, and then again in 2024 in June this year. The final one was to actually go around every business, and that part was key to the scope. Is we had to get behind every front door of every business to understand the several businesses and the several layers that sit behind them, and that was in partnership with both bids, and that was to identify what we would call the business constraints, but it's the needs of those business to operate without minimum impact of the works. So loading, unloading, fire, waste management, everything associated with a successful operation of a business, we needed to understand. And we've managed to do that. And that forms part of a lessons learned exercise we did with our city centre public realm, our phase 1 scheme, and the contractor there was to be able to take all of that information and put it up front within the contract for the future bidders to actually thoroughly understand and plan their scheme around. We want limited disruption to those businesses. We want them to succeed and see the benefits that come out at the end. We know economic growth, we know money in the till, but to do that, we've had to understand how every one of them works. And that's not just the front door that you see along New Street. There's several businesses behind every front door, and it's getting to those as well. Their operating times, loading, unloading, I say down to waste management, just down to basic deliveries, how we plan that work around them and ensure they're not impacted. So yeah, we've done a fantastic amount over the development years.
Thank you, Craig. I'd like to reiterate comments in relation to the visual impact of this, and really want to pick up on the fact that you the Birmingham were able to bring the last project within budget, and we hope look forward to seeing that again with this one. The only thing I would say is about the Wolverhampton and the Birmingham project. I think we need to be publicising, quite well. It's a big PR coup, particularly for Birmingham. We need to actually push this out within the media, please. Okay. So can I get approval then for the recommendations 1 and 2 on page 51, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Over to item 7, 8 and 9, and pass over to Nick Oakley, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So these are the investment management dashboards for the funds managed by West Midlands Development Capital. They are for the public information dashboards, and for noting, I will, as usual, cover off any questions in the private session.
Thank you, Nick. Can we take them as noted then? Thank you. Right. At this point then, I move on to agenda item 10, which is the exclusion of the press and public resolution under section 100A LGA 1972. the exclusion of the public and press, in accordance with that, be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, as they are likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information as specified in the paragraphs of the Act. Can we now move into private session then, please, Dan, and move on to agenda item